All right, good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing really well. Welcome back to Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter Talk. Today I'm really happy to introduce to you Arch. Arch is a fellow fairy tale fan, Marvel movie aficionado, and hopefully a future author. Arch, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So, for those who don't really know much about you, aside from what I've just mentioned, why don't you tell us all about yourself?
Well, as you mentioned, I love Marvel and I love writing. Aside from that, I really like to draw. I have my sketchbook right here in front of me, actually. I love to read. I love pretty much anything that has to do with books. As you said, Marvel movies are awesome. I love Marvel. Um, I'm a big fan of like webtoon. I love webtoons and stuff like that. Of course, fairy tale is a favorite. Got to admit, I'm pretty new in the anime community, so I'm not all that big anywhere else. But that's me.
So, you mentioned you're not really big into the anime community, so how did you get started as a fairy tale fan?
Well, I just like kind of stumbled across like some stuff about fairy tale. I'm just like, hey, this looks pretty interesting. So I checked Netflix to see if it had fairy tale, and I saw the first season. I'm just like, hey, I'll check it out. Might as well. So I watched that. I binged through it in like a week, and then realized that there are several more seasons. Better go watch those too. So I just kind of been hooked on it ever since.
What was it that first brought you into fairy tale and appealed to you the most?
I really liked I like the idea of it. I love fantasy and stuff like that. So when I realized, like, hey, Dragon Slayers, that sounds really cool. Um, I don't know, just the idea of it was really appealing, and like the whole guild, like I've always wanted like a family setting like that. Like that just seems like family to me. That I don't know, that just really appealed to me, and I love it.
At what point
Yeah,
in this season would you say that it really started becoming your favorite?
I'd say like halfway through the first season, I'm just like, I'm hooked. Like, this is what I want to watch for a while. I don't want to watch anything else. This is my thing.
Okay, so what arc would you say was your favorite in the series?
Oh, I always have to go with the Grand Magic Games. That was such a fun arc, and it was just like Fairy Tale getting back on its feet after the whole incident with Tenro Island. I love that arc. It's a lot of fun. I love like meeting some new characters and seeing our fairy tale grow a little bit more.
So that's a really eclectic arc where you've got not only the fairy tale characters that you've known for about 200 something chapters, but somewhere around 50 or more new characters. How did you find it to be in terms of readability? Because obviously there's no singular focus in that arc where the way Phantom Lord really focuses on Lucy or the Galuna
Yeah,
Island focuses on Gray. How did that arc really stick to you when it doesn't really have that central focus?
man, it was like kind of hard to like track everything. Just like all of this stuff is happening at once, and you kind of got to piece it together. But I think that's part of the fun of it, and it's like realizing, oh, this goes with this and this goes with that, and it was just like a really fun arc. I had a lot of fun going through it and like figuring out what was like going on and stuff. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the arc.
What would you say is your least favorite arc in Fairy Tale?
I'd say the Daphne arc. The Daphne arc, it just seemed a little bit out of place.
Well, the Daphne arc is anime only, so I think the
Yeah.
majority of people agree with you right there. But how about those arcs that aren't anime only and were adapted from the manga?
Um. Well, I haven't read all of the manga. Um. I've been kind of working through it. My library has some of it, so I'm having to like piece it together as I go. But I feel like the anime did really well with the manga arcs.
So as far as characters in the series go, what would you say is the most appealing thing about the characters as a whole? And then I want you to tell me which one is your favorite.
I really like how the characters can fight and be angry at each other and just have that conflict. But at the end of the day, they're still friends, they're still family, they're still a guild. And I'd have to say my favorite is Lovey McGarden. I really relate to her love of books and knowledge. And we're actually like I looked this up. Actually, we're about the same height, so I definitely relate to her being short.
Oh, there's no doubt that she's short, but
Oh yeah,
as a
she's tiny.
former fairy tale wiki editor, I do have to unfortunately let you know that the number you saw is probably just fan fiction. There have been no official heights revealed.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
So who would you say in fairy tale is your least favorite character?
I don't really think I have a least favorite character. Um, I really love just the whole guild. They're all a family. Um, and I know it's like all fiction and stuff, but I don't like to I don't like to pit them against each other. You know.
Sure. Even among characters outside the guild, though?
Um, well, characters outside the guild, like I didn't like Duke Everly. Oh, and I'm not a big fan of Ichia. He freaks me out.
I believe he freaks most people out.
There's that one episode. Remember where Ichia had that special potion
Ah, yes,
that
I
he
do remember
yeah, that really freaked me out.
correcting
I
about that.
think I had nightmares about that.
I believe most people would,
Yeah.
but that's entirely understandable. It was a very unusual Halloween-esque episode.
Yeah.
But of course, fairy tales always about the goofy antics and the like. So aside from characters being fun, what would you say is the thing that you like most about the series?
I like how the characters went through this entire series and came out relatively the same as they went in. Like you saw like in the last episode, you see like Natsu and Gray fighting and Lucy with her book and just happy being happy. And then you look back at the first few episodes and you're just like, yeah, that's how we started out. And I really like how, and it stays consistent throughout too. Natsu being protective of Lucy and happy with his fish and all of that. I like the consistency.
So a lot of people would actually disagree with that, and they would argue that fairy tale characters suffer from a lack of growth as a result if they're still acting the same way as they have overall, and it feels like their experiences haven't really changed them. What would be your response to that?
Well, I think they have a right to say that. I like that they stayed relatively the same and they didn't let their hardships change who they were. Of course, they went through hardships. Of course, that changed them. But it's good that they can still be them.
So you want to really enjoy the fact that they're still the fun characters that you already know and that they don't come out with radically different personalities?
I'd say, in a way, of course, they've been changed. Um, but I like that they're still the same characters. Yes.
So what would be some of the aspects of fairy tale that you don't like?
Um, I don't really know. Um, well, I
Okay, well,
think.
if I may
Uh,
ask you a few
sorry.
different aspects and you'll give your opinion on them.
Yes, go ahead.
What do you think about fairy tale's art style?
I like the art style. I like how it really grew. You can like visibly see if you look at the first manga and the last manga, or the first episode and the last episode, it's still the same but different.
The first episode and the last episode are also animated by two different studios, so some might argue that had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so how about the fairy tale fights? Obviously, there's the one side of the fandom that thinks that the fights are cool and explosive and interesting to watch, but the other feels that they're too one-dimensional, that they're not really about strategy and the like. They're just about flashiness.
I really think the fight scenes are cool, to be honest. I'm just that kind of person. I love fight scenes. I don't know, it's just fun. I just like to enjoy it. It does seem unrealistic, of course. It's not really meant to be realistic, but I think that's part of the fun of it.
And the final area I want to ask you about is the probably the most controversial in the fairy tale fandom. It's about the fan service. Now, obviously, you have the one side of fans who are okay with it and they don't really have a problem with it. They think it is just what it is, while the other side thinks that there's a certain limit that is allowed, but fairy tale crosses this limit several times and it borders on essentially being a soft core hentai, and that it's real distraction from the fairy tale plot. So what's your take on that?
I've never really been distracted by it. I feel it just kind of is what it is. It doesn't really bother me. It just is what it is, I think. Everyone's
So when it,
entitled to their own opinion on that, of course.
certainly. So when it comes to those three things, the arts, the fight, and the fan service, is there anything you would change, or would you more or less just keep it the same way that the author left it?
I mean, if I could, I'd change the fan service just a little bit, just because, like, maybe so some younger audiences can enjoy it without their parents being too concerned. Um, because it is a fun show. It's funny, it's cute, it's enjoyable, it's epic, it's crazy, it's fun. It's just a great show. And it'd be great if even more people could enjoy it.
There's a really interesting meme that I've seen several times, and it involves fairy tale in particular. It's about how when one is watching fairy tale alone, it's really epic, and the screenshot they use to illustrate this is Natsu and Gajeel fighting Laxus. But then the second
Mm.
part of them is when your parents enter the room, this is what anime is like, and it's a picture of Lucy doing a cute face all up in front of the screen in her swimsuit. And obviously everybody can relate to this kind of experience. That whole sex scene during a movie, when you're watching this movie with your parent, that tends to be pretty awkward. But
Yeah.
in terms of that, I think everybody has something that they can understand, especially when they're part of this anime community. So you said you're not really big on this, or rather that you're more new. So what are some other anime that you're interested in?
I really like Ancient Magus Bride. It's a really good one. It's also uh, pretty fantasy based. And it's less comedy. There's actually a little bit of gore in it, but I don't mind that.
So that's a fairly recent one. Would you say that recent anime are more what you've been watching and that the classics have kind of stayed to the side for now?
For now, I want to get into the classics eventually. Again, I'm still pretty new to anime and all of that. I was pretty sheltered, so I'm kind of just getting into this on my own. I do have some friends who will recommend me stuff, and then I will completely forget about whatever they just said. Um, not because I want to, of course. I can be very scatterbrained sometimes. So if I don't write it down, I will forget.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. So
Yeah.
what the other anime that you've been recommended that you haven't watched yet, but that you are interested in watching?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I've had lots of people recommend me that one. I think I watched 2 episodes and then I forgot about it. Uh, it did look interesting, but I just got really busy and I never got back to it. I'll probably be picking that back up soon.
Okay, so are there any other anime that you want to talk about in general?
I can't really think of anything. Well, my brother's been trying to get me into My Hero Academia, and I think that's pretty good.
How much of it have you watched?
Um, I think we're like 3 episodes into the 4th season.
You're a fair ways in. That's around 70 something episodes.
Yeah, we binged a lot of it in like one sitting, so it's pretty good. I mostly watch it because he likes to watch it. It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it.
Is this a younger brother or an older one?
Oh, he's my younger brother.
Okay, so it's definitely understandable that he's interested in that battle type shonen of the underdog protagonist.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the more interesting things I found about Fairy Tail was that Natsu isn't an underdog. He's coming into the series already quite powerful, and he doesn't necessarily have to learn and train extensively. Now, obviously, I think there's benefits to both. There's definitely the template which Dragon Ball started, which is about characters being strong and training, and some take this a little bit further, like Naruto, where he's kind of a loser and he doesn't really know anything. But either way, a lot of fights end up becoming very extensive and building up around this training and then subsequent fighting. And that's really what the whole genre is about. So, would you say that you have a favorite genre in anime?
I haven't gotten far enough in to really do much genre, but most of my other genres for like other things is fantasy. That's kind of my default. So I don't know if that's like a technical genre, but I do like fantasy anime.
That's fair. So, you've also mentioned that you're a big fan of the Marvel movies. How did you get
Yes.
started in Marvel?
Funny story. I was hanging out with a friend a few years ago, and I had never seen a Marvel movie before this. Um, but we sat down and she put on Captain America Civil War, and I had no clue what was going on. So I just ignored the movie and played with her husky. But like a while later, I'm just like, hey, maybe I should go back to that. So I watched that movie again, and I still had no idea what was going on. So I binged through like the whole Marvel series, and I was like, oh, that makes sense now. And the first Marvel movie I saw in theaters was Doctor Strange.
So that was 2016. So that's not necessarily one of the older movies. So what was it that really appealed to you about Doctor Strange?
Um, well, actually, I went to go see it while I was going on a date, actually. So I didn't really have a say in the matter, but it was fun and I really enjoyed it. I hadn't seen all the Marvel movies at that point. Yeah, I hadn't binged it through at that point. I think I said that wrong earlier. Um, so I saw Doctor Strange, and then later on, I binged all the Marvel movies. Um, so I really enjoyed it. I liked his cape. That was fun. I still didn't quite understand everything that was going on, but I really did enjoy it.
So what would you say is so far your favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And what's your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite character hands down, Vision. I love him so much. He's underrated. He's an absolute sweetheart. And he's dead. Uh, favorite movie, Captain America: Civil War. I think I'm biased because it was the first movie I saw, and it makes a lot more sense now, mind you. But I love that movie. It has sentimental value.
Yeah, that's really one of those Marvel movies that has the ensemble cast. It's effectively an Avengers 2.5, and if you're not already up to date with the Iron Man story and the Captain America story and the story of various other characters, it's definitely one of the harder ones to get into. But if you are, I think it's definitely one of the best. It's in my top five without any doubt.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love that movie.
So you mentioned that Vision is your favorite character, so I'm guessing that you're pretty excited for the WandaVision TV series that's coming out soon, right?
Oh, absolutely. You should see my Twitter account. I've got uh lots of WandaVision stuff. I retweet all my friends. Like most of my friends are WandaVision stans. So, and we're all like into the theories and stuff. Like, hey, I bet this is gonna happen, or then this is gonna happen. Oh wait, what if this happens? And stuff like that.
So how did
Yeah,
Wanda appeal to you as a character?
I really do like Wanda too. She's one of my favorites too. I like her growth. She's really like grown a lot from when she was taken in by the Avengers as this like goth emo chick who had nothing, and then she was given a home. I really like that kind of story with her.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. She has had a lot of chances to grow after being an orphan and losing everything and then finding the people who care about her and then meeting the man who cares about her. Well, the robot, but it's effectively the same thing. And then
Yeah.
her emotional distress during Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame afterwards. And I think both people would agree that both were really good movies, but also very pivotal moments for her. And this WandaVision is going to be the next big thing. And then obviously everyone knows that it leads into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, one of the movies coming out next year. It's not this year, so we're going to have to wait for a while. But how are you looking forward to the Doctor Strange movie?
Oh, I am definitely looking forward to it. I really like Doctor Strange too. Doctor Strange alongside Scarlet Witch is going to be pretty epic. I can't wait to see where that goes.
What's your favorite theory about the Doctor Strange movie so far?
Honestly, I think my favorite theory is that Scarlet Witch is going to be a villain. I don't know why that's my favorite. I just think that would be really neat.
There's definitely been moments in her comic book history where she's been a villain, but obviously, as comic books go, they tend to flip flop on that decision and retcon it every now and again. So,
Yeah,
how do you feel about the comic books being faithfully adapted versus the movies taking creative license to make them more accessible to people who are not already comic book fans?
I was never really big on Marvel comics because I don't know. I just never really got into them as a kid. I was never really given access. But I think that like you can enjoy them separately, the movies and the comic books. It's really like each to their own on this one. Because I really love the Marvel movies, and I know people who love the Marvel comics and the Marvel movies, and you can enjoy them as two separate things.
I'm one of them. Obviously, Marvel's really big in the media right now. They just made that huge Phase 4 announcement several months ago, and they've made a few more that were more recent. Among those more recent ones being that they reacquired Spider-Man because of the new deal with Sony, and that one's coming out next year. So it's going to be a relatively short wait. So what are the other Marvel movies that you're really looking forward to that are coming up in the future?
I'm really looking forward to this Black Widow movie. That's going to be pretty neat. I can't wait to see some more of her between the events of Civil War and Infinity War. I think that was the time frame it was given, right? Yeah, it was between Civil War and Infinity War.
Okay, and are there any others?
I gotta remember which ones are coming out. I
Among
just
others,
woke up like an hour ago, so
but there is the upcoming Spider-Man movie.
oh yeah,
There's
definitely looking forward to that.
there's the Shang-Chi movie and the Ten Rings, and there's also Thor: Love and Thunder, where Natalie Portman is going to take on the role.
Yeah, that seems pretty interesting. I want to see how they do that. That's gonna be pretty cool.
So one thing that a lot of Marvel fans have really complained about is the fact that it's taken this long for Black Widow to get her own solo series. I'm personally of the opinion that if they were going to do a Black Widow movie, that it would have been better off to do it in Phase 2. Now, obviously, I'm still going to watch this upcoming one because it's still Marvel, and I'm sure that it's still going to be really good. But I think a general appetite for Black Widow has decreased after her, spoilers, but her death in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
And the fact, whether you really agree with it or not, it is kind of definitive. And so now it seems a little bit strange because, as you said, this movie isn't a backstory movie. This is a movie that does take place between Avengers, Civil War, and Infinity War. So, what do you take of that? That this movie's kind of been delayed, and maybe people aren't as excited as they would have been years earlier.
I honestly really wish they had done it earlier. I remember talk like a long time ago, like before I was into Marvel, that there was going to be a Black Widow movie, but it never happened. So I don't know what happened there. I'm sure there's some explanation somewhere, but I really wish there had been like an actual backstory for Black Widow.
So the original reason that some people said, but many people already speculated, was that they were not interested in making a Black Widow movie because obviously back then and really even now they made their money on the merchandise more so than the film rights, or rather the
Yeah.
film's box office. And a lot of people, well, in the higher ups, as it were not convinced that specifically boys would buy a Black Widow action figure. But obviously, this ignores the fact that I'm sure that there would be young girls and that some boys would enjoy a Black Widow action figure because she's still one of the original six Avengers. It's kind of important for those collectors to have the complete set. So there's definitely been a bit of a issue in terms of getting her through. But regardless of that, do you think that people will still enjoy this movie?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. I talk about it sometimes with some of my friends. Like, it's gonna be a cool movie regardless. It's Black Widow. Come on, but it would have been really neat if we had had an actual backstory.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, especially considering that not only is she one of the characters who hasn't had one, but also has a more interesting one in that it would take place in a foreign country in a different time period in a very unique environment because it was Soviet Russia, different time, a lot of non great things happening back then. But
Oh
certainly I'm
yeah,
going to this new movie and I'm sure everybody else will. So
yeah.
after that, what do you think about their chief rival, DC? Are you into their movies, or are they mostly a non-factor to you?
Well, I wouldn't say like I'm against DC. I'm not one of those Marvel fans that's like, DC. But I'm not really big on DC. I just haven't been catching up with their movies.
So have you not seen, just out of curiosity, you haven't seen Wonder Woman or Aquaman or Shazam or any of the more recent ones?
I did see Wonder Woman, but I haven't seen the others.
As a diehard comic book fan and also a lover of comic book movies, I do have to say that there's definitely been an upwards tick in DC's movies, particularly those extended universe movies, because I thought Shazam was actually quite well done. Definitely took its cues from Marvel, but that's okay. I really think they should be learning from each other, and in their history, they have the entire reason that companies. Well, like Marvel's Fantastic Four really exist because of the Justice League and the fact that Justice League comic books were selling so well at the time. This mind you, this was the 1960s, I believe. But there's definitely chances and opportunities for them to learn from each other. And obviously, I'm going to watch a lot more of it. So, how would you feel about getting more into DC if the general public were to view their recent movies as good and roughly in on par with Marvel in terms of quality?
Oh, I'd be open to it. Um, it's just like availability. Um, Pretty much like going to the theater all the time is a little bit difficult, and like having to rent movies all the time. Because I know DC, that isn't Disney, right? Yeah, DC isn't Disney.
Sorry, DC is Warner Brothers.
Oh, is it? Um, so do they have anything on Disney Plus? I don't know.
I would
I'll have to
highly
check it
doubt
out.
anything on Disney Plus, considering that it's a very noteworthy rival. But you would most likely find any DC movies on Netflix or
Right.
possibly because they're one of their chief creative guys, Jeff Johns, or rather, perhaps it's Greg Berlanti, but he's commissioning quite a lot of new content, including, I believe, next year a Green Lantern TV series for HBO Max. And as a
All right.
long Lantern fan, that's something that I'm personally very excited for.
Oh my, I have friends who are Lantern fans.
Really,
Yeah, they're really into it. They're awesome people. But yeah, I'd be open to it if I just got like some good accessibility to like all the movies. So you like binge through, see like get some history because I hate jumping in the middle of the series. That's kind of what happened to Marvel. And I had no clue what was happening. I honestly would have rather like started from the beginning with that. So I kind of want to start from the beginning with DC if I get the chance to.
well, certainly that's understandable. I mean, you jumped into Marvel when there were already about 12 or so movies before Civil War. So
Yeah.
to have been afterwards, I can imagine was pretty difficult.
Oh, it was very difficult.
So you mentioned accessibility and streaming services. So which ones do you have and what are your favorite things to do with them right now? Because obviously everybody's jumping on those platforms to get their content as soon as it comes out. Netflix releases all of their movies or sorry, other TV shows in giant batches of 13 episodes in one day to allow for binge watching. So what's your general approach to that and which platforms are you using for it?
Well, I have Amazon Prime, Netflix, and Disney Plus. And I mostly use Netflix. I'm getting more into Disney Plus, but even when I was younger, I was never all that big on Disney. I wasn't that kid who ran around with Minnie Mouse ears, you know? I like Disney. It's just never been a big thing, so I've still been leaning more towards Netflix. Um and every now and then I'll just like find something I want to watch and just binge through it in a day and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think that's totally understandable. When I was younger, I was definitely anti Disney, but as I grew older, and even if I'm not necessarily into the classics, they've done a lot of good stuff as of the last several years.
Oh
Aside
yeah,
from
definitely.
obviously buying the Marvel movies because they needed that appeal to boys because they didn't necessarily have anything that was working. Most of their revenue coming from the Disney Princess line. They've also
Hmm.
done a lot with video games. I think most notably the Kingdom Hearts series. Now, I don't know if you've ever played it, but as somebody who has played several titles, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I've heard it's really, really good.
And the most recent game actually came out, I believe, last year. Yeah, I believe it was last year. So
Nice.
obviously, there's a lot more potential for them. Now, obviously, there's definitely concerns about them becoming a monopoly, but I don't want to bore you with business-related topics because that's not really what we're here to talk about. So, is there like something that you'd like to bring up at this point? Because now I'd just kind of like to open the floor for you and just make this a little bit more conversational.
Um, I'm not really good at bringing up topics, honestly. Have you ever read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley?
No, I can't say that I have. Although I have seen the original movie with I can't remember. Was it Boris Karloff?
Oh, I haven't the slightest clue. I don't pay attention to the movies.
Because there's been quite a few.
Oh yeah, there have been many, many, many Frankenstein movies and remakes and all of that, and I haven't really found many that are accurate. There's a mini series. I can't remember who it stars or really much. I haven't actually watched it. But apparently it's supposed to be pretty accurate to the book. I'm a big um Frankenstein book junkie. It's just like it's my favorite book and I know way too much about it.
What was it that really appealed to you in terms of Frankenstein? Because obviously that's a very classic thing, but it's also considered to be a bit on the, let's say, macabre side.
Yeah, see, it's strange to me too because I've never been big on classics or really anything like that. It is like one of the first science fiction novels. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It's a comfort book for me. I don't know. I really enjoy it.
I've never actually read any Mary Shelley novels, though I've heard that she's a very prolific author who's done a lot of other work aside from Frankenstein. So, how
Hmm.
much have you invested into her other works?
Um, not much, not much, but I've been meaning to. I have like a collection of gothic stories and in there is like one of hers, so I think I'll start with that. But yeah, I need to make a trip to the library.
So, when it comes to Frankenstein, is it really the character, or rather, well, I guess the monster? Because Frankenstein, to a lot of people, surprised Frankenstein is not the name of the monster, is it?
I know it's ridiculous. Frankenstein was definitely not his monster. And that's for some reason that's easily confused. I don't know.
I'm honestly not certain how that happened either. It's definitely one of those more famous historical misunderstandings or misquotes along the lines of Luke, I am your father, not actually being the line that Darth Vader says,
Yeah.
or Hamlet being misquoted as saying, Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, which again is not the line that he actually
Hmm.
said in Hamlet.
It's really strange. Um Also how the movie portrayed the monster. Because the monster was not a green bumbling fool. The monster was originally intended to be beautiful. But it didn't quite turn out that way. So there are elements about him that are beautiful, but those are pretty much like forgotten once you realize all of the rest of his horrific features. His skin is yellowish, and you can almost like see the muscles moving beneath it. His eyes are yellow. His hair is long and black, and he's 8 feet tall, so that's enough to scare you if you ever came across him. He's not real, of course, I would hope. But yeah, they kind of messed that up in the movies.
I feel
Oh,
like that
he
would
was
that
sorry.
scares most people, a large 8-foot monster made of dead body parts.
Yeah. Yeah, not only that, but he wasn't stupid, but he was very, very intelligent. Like the guy was super smart. Like in what, 4 years, he learned basically all he would ever need to know about language. And he learned so much just by living near a family in the woods. Not only was he 8 feet tall and terrifying, but he was smart too.
That is really interesting. So, what's some other fiction that you're interested in? Because obviously, you've got Fairy Tale as an anime, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Frankenstein. These are three fairly disconnected things.
Yes, very disconnected. Well, I've really been into Lore Olympus on Webtoon. That's a pretty popular comic right now.
Do you want to break that down a little bit for those who haven't heard of it?
Well, Lore Olympus is a retelling of the story of Hades and Persephone. And Olympus itself is kind of in like a modern setting, while in the mortal world, it's like ancient Greece. So it's really interesting. Like when they switch between Olympus and the mortal realm, they've got their so-called mortal forms, and when they're in Olympus, they've got their immortal forms. And the art style is gorgeous. Like I highly recommend uh, even just looking at the art. It's the colors are beautiful, the contrast, the shading, the backgrounds even. It's just and the story itself. Oh my goodness, the story is it's dramatic, it's fun, it's almost like enlightening. Like there's some stuff that's talked about, like even like mental health issues. It's the author is very diverse, and it's just fantastic. I highly recommend checking it out.
How accessible would it be to a new reader? Because, as a lot of people know, webtoons tend to update every so often, and if they've been going on for several years, it can be quite a bit of a pain to catch up. This is one of the reasons why I tend to hesitate with that, because if I know that an online web strip or something has 1,000 that I'd have to go through in order to catch up, even if it's really good, and even if I find it appealing, it would be a bit of a time sink. So, how does Lore Olympus apply to that?
Well, currently, hold on, I'm looking this up. Lore Olympus has 94 episodes available. It's been going since March 2018. It updates every Saturday at 9 p.m. It also has Fast Pass. So I'd say it's relatively accessible.
Okay, that's interesting. So we'll definitely talk about that at some point, and perhaps we'll even link the viewers to it, because obviously you're a Twitter user. You're going to be
Yes.
there for a while, so you can definitely have people follow you and look at it, right?
Yeah, I'll definitely have to link that for people to check out.
Yeah, because that's really what this whole project is about, is that we want our little fairy tale community to grow beyond, get to know each other a little bit better. And I think we're
Yes.
already off to a good start in 2020. So before I close this off, I'd just like to ask, is there anything else you want to say?
Well, Fairy Tale has really, it sounds cheesy, but it's made my life better. It's made um it's made things a little easier. Last year, around this time, I was in a really, really bad place. And Fairy Tale was my escape. That was how I got through the day. That was really just like a real blessing for me. I'm really grateful that it was there when it was.
I think we're all really sorry to hear that you were in this bad place, but we're also glad that you got out of it and that Fairy Tale had a role to play, and that's really what we're all here for at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, Fairy Tale is fantastic, and it was just something that made me smile, and it still does, and I think it always will.
And we're always glad to hear that, and we hope it continues to do so. Just out of curiosity, because it's going to take a while, have you been following the Fairy Tale 100-Year Quest manga?
No, but I want to. I just don't really have access to it at the moment. I still need to figure out how to get that. But once I figure that out, I'll definitely start following that.
Totally understandable. It'll be, I presume, a while before we get the manga to be adapted into an anime, but I've generally heard very good things about it. People seem to be enjoying it, and it definitely keeps up with the crazy nature of Fairy Tale that we've come to know so far.
Oh, that's
So if
good
you
to hear.
think you would enjoy it,
I think I would too. I'll definitely check it out if I ever get the chance.
and thank you for checking out this. We're really glad that you came on and were able to talk to us and give us a little bit of a better insight into you and what you're all about. And we're really glad. I mean, this is what the Fairy Tale Twitter Talk project is all about.
Oh, absolutely.
So, is there any way that people who are interested in getting to know you better can get to know you better?
Yep, you can check me out on Twitter at No Cheese Grilled Cheese. That's both cheeses are spelled with CHZ, or is it double Z? Hold on, I have different
I
accounts.
believe
I
we
think
can.
it's two.
I think we can give them a direct link to your accounts so that they
Yeah,
don't necessarily need to spell it out for themselves in their browsers.
yeah. Yep. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, same thing. Though that's mostly art and stuff for me. Um, yep, that's about it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you'll continue to follow Fairy Tale Wiki and just continue to stay up to date with the series as much as you can.
I definitely will. Thanks for giving me this chance.
We're happy to have had you, and we hope to have you guys too. So if you're interested in being part of Fairy Tale Wiki's Twitter Talk project, just fill out the application and we'll get back to you if we decide that we want to bring you on board to just be part of this little project, because we're obviously trying to get different people who have different types of things to contribute. So if you think you're one of those people, just drop that application. Did you find that to be a really easy process, Arch?
Oh yeah, definitely. Super easy.
All right, well, glad to hear it. All right, that's going to be the end of episode 2. Thank you guys for sticking with us so much. We'll drop all the information in our tweets and our relevant comment boxes. So for now, thank you very much for being part of this episode, and we will talk to you guys soon. And goodbye.
Bye.